You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Nick, Alex, I yield to Nolan, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 712 of Trophy Whores. As you could tell, Tricky is not hosting tonight, so that means the Grinelli takeover is back in effect with my main man here, Alex. What's going on, Alex?
You know, growing up watching Scooby-Doo, I always thought that I was somewhat of a sleuth because, I could help figure things out. And now I kind of, with the new game I'm playing, I've graduated to the rank of PI, private investigator. More on that later.
You and I are going down that same education path.
Oh, we're
sir.
playing the same game. Lovely.
Yep. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but before we do that, let's shoot the shit. How's your week been, Alex?
Oh, with springtime comes a lot of different chores around the house, trimming hedges, putting out new mulch. So, I'm just focused on not just work, but coming home. And it's weird because I don't like to just sit at home all day and play video games. Like, I mean, sometimes that happens, but like, I generally enjoy when I can balance things between life and going to work and coming home and doing stuff around the house, walking the dog because Athena wants to walk, every day now that it's somewhat nice outside. And we haven't gotten a ton of rain here in Kentucky, so it's not been a big issue there. It's, just go and take a walk for a walk and doing lawn work. I don't know. I just feel a better sense of myself. I feel better about myself when I can balance all those things out. So, just finding time to play games, which I, find a good amount of time to play games, but also getting stuff done around the house feels accomplishing, And I'm still, as I wouldn't say a new homeowner, but I'm still learning things. So being able to do more and more around the house to take care of a home is something I take a great pride in,
Oh, no, I absolutely find that same thing now that I have a place that I have to maintain, like a yard and things around the house. I went out Friday after work and was able to mow the front lawn in all of, 15 minutes. And it takes a certain pride and accomplishment that you go, okay, yeah, I did that. Things are looking okay. But
that is one thing. Like, I see my neighbors, like, they'll hire lawn care specialists, and not like talking about people to make sure like that your lawn looks like it's like all the commercials like True Green or whatever. They're like, hey, have a PGA quality lawn. Like, you see some people have people come and like pay to mow a lawn, and I'm like, y'all are in your 30s and you're paying people to mow your lawn. Like, that's something I would never consider paying for. Like, I consider that a waste of money to have someone mow my own lawn. Now, if someone has mobility issues, or they're a little older and it's just difficult for them, I understand. But me in my early 40s, I see people in their 30s like paying for lawn care, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like, you can't stop, because I like mowing the lawn. I don't want to have to do it every day, but once a week I like to mow the lawn because it gets me out outside. I get to enjoy the weather, get some vitamin D, soak it in. So I don't know. That's one of those weird things that I just don't mind doing.
I can't stand mowing the lawn, to be honest. It's to me, it's wasted time. And I say wasted in a metaphysical sense. It's just like, I always feel I could be doing something more productive. Literally it's sitting there watching grass grow. But I am with you on that. I've actually been talking with my best friend about this because there is a certain time factor, and depending on the size of your yard and shit like that, it questions how much time every week, every other week are you taking? He was talking about one year when we had so much rain, he was mowing like twice a week because the grass was just growing that fast. But I also subscribe to, well, I spent $500 on my lawnmower and that's it. Like, that's my lawnmower for X number of years. Whereas I could spend $500 on a lawn mowing service, and that takes care of me for 3 to 6 months, depending on the service and how frequently. So I'm just basically sinking a new lawnmower every half year or every year. But I also was the one that went out and bought one of those fancy robotic lawnmowers that, mows my lawn automatically, and I just have it set up to 2 zones and it alternates zones. So, how much money did I spend on that? Well, it's still, after years, it pays for itself rather than having to have somebody come in and mow the lawn.
Yeah. I mean, we all like to pay for convenience in some aspects of our life, but I think when it comes to home ownership, there's just some things I'm not comfortable doing and I'm willing to pay somebody to do. And the lawn is just like, it's just like an effort and time thing. Like, it's not difficult. It's just something you can, if you've got a good lawnmower, if you invest in the right lawnmower, you pay that big upfront cost, but you're saving money not having someone come out and, mow your lawn.
Where I am comfortable bringing somebody in to, pay them for their service? A plumber who had to come in and do about 100 feet of snaking in our waste line. We had a big blockage last night, and that's always fun. Wondering, I wonder how many times I can, flush the toilet before this becomes a problem. So that was an entertaining cost I had today.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I mean, plumbing's one of those things I don't fuck around with. Electrical, I mean, I'll use like a little snake thing to pull hair out of drains and stuff like that. But electrical, certain things, no thanks. I need the professional to come in here and do this stuff.
Agreed. But, speaking of professionals, we got a bunch of professionals on this show here earning trophies, and we'll go into our updated trophy counts because that's why we're here. We're not talking about home ownership. We're talking about earning trophies in games. Well, you guys are. I'm not. I didn't earn any trophies this week.
I know you say that, but I think that home ownership discussion or just doing stuff around the house hit hard with a lot of people listening. Because
in our age bracket, yes.
Own your home or not, or or you're in an apartment, you still understand like the need to take care of shit and clean. So it's all, whether you're spring cleaning or you're mowing your lawn, everybody's got their own sense of maintenance they got to do. So
that is accurate. So updated trophy counts. Tricky is at a level 983 with 35,608 trophies and 1,038 platinums. Alex?
Level 533, total trophy count of 11,241 and a platinum count of 2008 and 2007 games.
Yield is at level 543 with 11,894 trophies and 228 platinums. I am still slinking around at level 224 with 1,382 trophies and 0 platinums. And Sid is at level 902 with 28,165 trophies and 869 platinums. Speaking of Sid, guess what, folks? We actually do have a rarity. This is a Sophie's Trophies portion. So we do have a Sophie's Trophies update this week. And through the magic of editing, here's Sid.
Hey guys, it's Sid again with your platinum shoutouts. Now, I'll give you a bit of a behind the scenes. Gaz Davis 11, he sends me a picture through Messenger of everyone who has platinums. And usually, guys, I sit there and I write them all out. So if I have a couple to do, I will write the person's name down, i.e. Pee-wee. I'll write his name down, look through all the pictures I have, and write a list out of the games he has done. But now I'm going to do it a little bit different, guys. Whenever Gareth sends me a picture now, I have a printer at home, so I just print out that picture. So I'm going to go through each picture, and so people's names will appear more than once. I have 3 pages to do, so you will hear a little bit of rustling in the background as I read through these. But I'm just trying this out, guys, because I know I'm not consistent in the timings I do these, but hopefully I will get better, but this is just an easier way for me to do it. It saves me writing out a big list because that takes ages. So we're going to start, guys. And we're going to start with Marky Fraser with Heart of the Forest on the PS5. These are all Aprils, by the way. Then we have Pee-wee ITFC with Slime Rancher on the PS4. And Dave the Diver on the PS5. And Waterfields 1, High on Life on the PS5. Dupes 25 with Resident Evil 7 on the PS5, great game. and Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. I think that's on the PS5. Then we have Shotty Sniper 123 with Vampire Survivors on the PS4. I love Vampire Survivors. Okay, so we'll move that page. Next up, Ifrit Hellfire with Cuisinier. Never heard of that, and that is on the PS5. MZ Nitro with Rainbow Siege 6 on the PS4. Zorro the Chronicles on the PS5, and Beast Quest on the PS4. Next up, Psy Tychist with Roombo on the PS4. Never heard of it. And Lost and Found Agency on the PS5. And again, we have Pee-wee ITFC with Red Dead Redemption on the PS3 and Ord on the PS4. Never heard of that one either. Then we have EDJ 3DG with Hollow Knight on the PS4, which is a game I will never, ever get the platinum in. Affectatious Donk with Estrange Overlord. Doesn't actually say what that one's on, so I'm going to say 5, maybe. Then Misa Goats a Lot with The Outer Worlds 2. Again, it doesn't say what it's on, but I think that is a PS5. Then we have Dupes 25 with Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 6. 3 is on the PS5, so the remake, and 0 and 6 are on the PS4. And hats off to you, Dupes, because playing 6 I couldn't do. I can't stand that game. Next up, we have the man himself, Tricky Mick, with Assassin's Creed Syndicate on the PS4. Well done, Tricky. That is a great platinum to get. Then we have Crook09 with Dicey Dungeons on the PS4. And then Dodge Williams with Vampire Survivors on the PS5. And Stink Palm with 10 Dates on the PS5. So that is all of the April ones I have there, guys. Now we're on to March, which I've done backwards because I'm a bit of a dick. But we don't worry about it. We'll just crack on and pretend it's supposed to be this way. So we have Gaz Davis 11 with Arkham Asylum on the PS4. Pee-wee again. Pee-wee ITFC with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered. That is on the 4. Psy Tychist, Sherwood Bay and Eleanor Grey Mystery. That's on the 5. Dupes 25 with Arkham Asylum. Couple of people getting Arkham. Good on them. And Dupes 25 with Spyro the Dragon. That is on the 4, so I think that's the remake. Affectatious Donk with Poker Night at the Inventory. And that is on the 5. Shotty Sniper 123 with Daxter on the 5. Lords of the Fallen, well done Shotty Sniper for that one, on the 5. And Sly 2 Band of Thieves again on the 5. And Ifrit Hellfire 90 with Fairy Tale 2, that's on the 5. Dupes 25 with Resident Evil 4 is on the 5, so I think that's going to be the remake. And Shotty Sniper 123 with Maneater on the 4. So, there you go, guys. Apart from reading the list backwards, which we don't worry about, not too bad. So, that is everyone's platinums. I haven't had an email or a message off Gaz today, so I will probably do that one for next week. But I thought I'd get these out of the way, guys, because I'm building up quite a list here. But that's it from me. Thanks for listening. Hope you're all well, and keep getting your trophies, guys. Bye.
And thank you, Sid, for that report out. Alrighty, and now we get to what we've been playing. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Alex, because you hit the note on one of the games I'm playing as well, that being Mouse PI for Hire. But let's hear what all you've been playing.
So, I mean, yes, I started playing that game this past week, but before we get into that, because I feel like me talking about that, you can bounce some stuff off of me and that can flow into what you feel about the game. Just real quick, playing just a bit more Subnautica Below Zero, and that game, So the game has a story, and like I do appreciate the lore of the planet, which you can find all kinds of videos on YouTube about. People love that shit. The lore of the Leviathans, the lore of each biome, and just kind of the history of the planet. And I do enjoy that. But when it comes to the game, like the story for me is just to lead me to new places where I can find things. It's not actually about what's happening on the planet. It's about me just finding new areas, and that kind of being my loose guide to find resources and interesting new places. So today or a few days ago, I happened upon a base left behind by, previous people that I had never found in the game before. I go into this cave and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I've never seen this before. Had brand new items that I could scan and build at my base. Had brand new plants that I could plant in my outdoor grow beds. So like just happening upon this random ass base with brand new things that, I'm 60, 70 hours in of just playing this game, most of it being just exploration and just fucking around and building, and just being able to find new things continually is like a really, really cool aspect about the game. So still doing a lot of base building, still exploring to kind of get some of the things mopped up that I didn't, even though if I don't have to earn any more trophies, it's a game I do just like exploring and playing and kind of finding all the schematics and all the different upgrades for your sea truck or for your prawn suit. So just more of that as kind of a gap to Saros, which is coming out this week. But before Saros, I got to be buying me some Saros because with the way Sony's going and chopping off limbs these days, I got to make sure Housemarque doesn't go. I got to do my best to support Housemarque. But jumped into Mouse PI for Hire, which is a game I have talked about, and it's been a little while since this game came up on the podcast, but first time I saw a trailer for it maybe a year and a half ago, immediately enthralled in the game. The art style just kind of, may not be for everybody, but if you're a fan of the art style, it's like there's this immediate tractor beam that you're like at least invested in watching a trailer to see what the game is all about. It's kind of 1930s set, detective in a world populated by rodents, shrews, rats, and like the art style kind of reminds you, something of like an early Mickey Mouse cartoon. If Mickey Mouse was like a noir detective, I think it's called Rubber Hose animation or something like that. It's hand drawn stuff, looks really good. So the animation and the visual style is just enthralling. And if you've watched the internet or been on the internet anytime looking at reviews of this game, you might have noticed, generally I think on Metacritic, the game has an 81 or an 80 on final score, so it's got a good score. But there's been some controversial takes, like IGN's score of 6, and a lot of people calling IGN out for that. But I've been enjoying the game. I also get some vibes of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because the bullets for your different guns, they have like their own characteristics and personalities. Not quite like, say, what's that game that I recently played from the makers of
High on Life.
High on Life, that's one. No, they don't like speak to you in that way. They're not characters in that way. But down in the screen, when it's showing a visualization of the type of weapon you have out and how much ammo you have, it's almost like a design from like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like they're each different. They're kind of their own character, so they don't talk to you. So it's not like that. But on screen they have a visualization that's almost like this cartoon character bullet, which gives me vibes of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So really, story-wise, the game itself is kind of like, I'm getting vibes that this is kind of the story that you've seen many times before. You're a detective, you're rooting out corruption. So unless there's some really big twists, I kind of feel like the story is kind of something you'll be able to call out things here and there and see things coming, like a train from miles away. But the art style and the action, the gunplay, are really kind of what brings this home. And this is a game I bought it on Friday, played for a few hours before I had to go to work, and then on Saturday I spent, we didn't really do much on Saturday. We didn't go out. I usually sleep late on Saturday because of my hours on Friday. But I spent, just kept pumping away at this game. I would take little breaks here and there, but, I put a good amount of time in this, and it's just one of those games that I just keep enjoying playing. So the weaponry is fun, the gunplay is fun, the art style is incredible. So really those two things have gotten me hooked. If you're a trophy hunter, and I feel like we have to talk about this aspect because we are on a podcast about trophies, the trophies are a little annoying. There's no replay feature. You can't go back and chapter select. So unless it's story related and literally you have to do it to complete the game, the trophies are all missable, which is a little annoying because you have this game. I think is graded as it's not a hard platinum, but it's about a 20-hour platinum. So if you have to go through multiple times, you are going to have to sink more time into it, obviously. So I don't like where there's a game with a ton of collectibles where there's a lot of missable stuff that you have to if you don't want to play a second time through, because there's a lot of stuff out there to play. Maybe you want to move on to a new game. You have to play with a guide from the start, which I really don't like. I love if you can just play the game first, experience it, find what you can find, and then go back through the guide through chapter select. That I think is best case scenario. Now, what I will say about the collectibles is they all blend very well into the time period. There's baseball cards to collect. There's newspapers. There's also comic books, really nicely drawn like comic book strips. So the collectibles all make sense. It's just the fact that most of the trophies are missable as a trophy hunter. It is a little annoying. But as far as the game goes, I really enjoy it. I think I haven't read IGN's review because I generally don't read reviews. But I will say that I can't imagine why this game would earn a 6. I think that's way too low of a score. So if you put a lot of stock in the IGN review, I'm telling you right now, the game is better than a 6. So I think it is closer to, say an 8, which most of Metacritic has aggregated out to. I don't know, Matt. How do you feel about Mouse PI for Hire?
So you hit a lot of the good points, and I did want to talk about the IGN review because it's not the only site that rated this game. I don't want to say as low as that, but on that scale. And I absolutely agree. It's not a 6, at least not to me. And I go through the review and I sit down and I say, well, the first thing he comes out of the article is says that he loves noir. Loves those gritty settings and how the detectives are always, deducing and trying to figure out things and making it work. He had, as you go through the review, he has multiple issues with the fact that it's a noir setting, but that Jack, who is your main character, voiced by the wonderful Troy Baker, is basically murdering everybody. Which, yeah, in a slapstick Looney Tunes setting, I kind of came to expect that. I looked more into his review, and he takes issue with the fact that in a world full of mice and shrews, everything has a cheese reference. Cheeselegger instead of bootlegger. He says in the article here, runs into a lady mouse with a sultry voice. It'll be described as Gorgonzola picante slapped on a mozzarella platter, which I think is fucking hilarious. And it's like he says, well, it's too referential. There's points in the game where Jack makes some references. One, he sees a boss and he's like, oh, God, I hope this isn't the rule of 3. And then when you come, sure enough, upon the third boss or the third test of that level, he's like, oh, yep, of course, that's on me. Like, it's self-referential and it's self-deprecating humor. Those things didn't seem to jive with the reviewer, and that's okay. So if you make it a 6, you make it a 6. But he goes on to say, like, the gameplay works. He says it's good. Everybody's labeling this as a boomer shooter, which, for those of you who don't know, it's just a game with fast-paced movement and a lot of shooting. And the problem is, at least he says, is that sometimes the guns don't feel or act like the way you'd expect them. He gives the example of the shotgun, that it sounds like a pop gun, but it just decimates everything in front of it. It's like he's not expecting the chaos based off of the sound. I don't know. How did you feel about the shotgun, Alex?
I've never once, while playing the game, thought that, oh man, this isn't as it should be. Or like, I've never like shot a gun and be like, that didn't feel right. To me, you get on it, unless it's been shown in trailers, you get into the game and, it's a game that you understand is going to have gunplay. And personally, I love the references. There's references to Popeye. There's references to Cuphead. 2 of my favorite references come from Sleepy Hollow and Jaws. So I love some of the references in the game. And to me, early on, you have you get weapons that like melt the skin off of enemies to where they become skeletons right in front of you. You blow off enemies' heads in a cartoonish way. So for me personally, I think obviously all bets are off when it comes to the gameplay and the way it's presented. I just don't. Nothing seems out of place to me when it comes to the the guns or the violence. Like it's all come, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm used to this now. I know what to expect. So personally, I didn't have any issues with them. I did see some criticism, and I can't. Maybe it was gamer ranks, maybe kind of wishing for more over the top guns. Maybe something closer to like High on Life or something, but and I don't want to put words in the person's mouth, but they wanted more over the top guns as opposed to maybe the more kind of like standard guns that we got. Standard, but a little bit weirder than standard if you not completely over the top. Yeah, I didn't have any problem with the weapons, the shotgun, nothing. No, I've just been enjoying the game, picking up on the references. I don't want to say any more because I don't want to ruin anything. But the cheese references, like there's a menu in the bar that's close to your office where it's like a mug of feta is this much money, or a shot of brie is this much money, or a bottle of brie is this much money. It's like, man, it's a game full of rodents. Like you collect pieces like wedges of cheese to give you health back. Like, what do you? I don't know. It didn't. There's not so much dialogue that the cheese references bothered me. It's kind of like, oh, that's cheesy, but I didn't find the dialogue to be grating. Should we say, when it comes to all the cheese talk. Like, someone might be annoyed by it, but it's an easy brush off. Like, who cares?
So he also, in his verbal review, he's like, well, you go down in the sewer and the boss is an alligator, because of course it is. Yes, that's exactly what I'm expecting in a Looney Tunes FPS, that you go into the sewer, you fight a crocodile. I got to wonder if the guy had the same problem in Resident Evil 2 with the giant crocodile that you fought in the sewer.
Well, the crocodile's name is Vic Gattori. Like,
yeah,
Gator
which
Gattori, and like,
it's fucking hilarious again.
Gator with a minigun. Like
and he's got a southern Bayou accent, which is exactly what I expected and loved.
You know who else has that? Leatherhead from Turtles and Miss Ruby from Sly Cooper. Like, it seems to me like the reviewer at IGN was a little harsh. If you want to make points and look at these things and be like, oh, there's too much cheese references, like, that's your prerogative. That's what you can write into your thing. But to like take so many points away from the game, I don't know. The review's getting like just blasted online by everybody. And this is the reason why I don't look at, I'll say, I don't take GameSpot and IGN, which at the, before 2000, like in the late 90s, like those were the places you went for your news. Then gradually Joystick, Kotaku, Destructoid, all these other sites showed up and started doing reviews. I don't know. I just don't personally put a lot of faith in IGN stuff or a lot of critical reviewers, because I feel like my sense of what a game is just better for me than what they could ever tell me. So maybe I feel like the review is a little harsh, but that's the review that they stand behind. That's fine. But this is also why I don't take IGN seriously and why I can't take that review seriously, having played the game myself.
And that's why we talk about previously where it's important that you actually go in and you look at what they're saying, not just look at the score and see why. If he feels it's a slightly above average shooter, okay, but why is that? And his basic issues were the marriage of noir storytelling along with FPS boomer shooter. He says those things just don't mix well, at least in his mind.
Yes, they do.
For me,
they work perfectly.
Personally, it's been awesome. I've been enjoying it. I've enjoyed the weapons I've gotten so far. I've enjoyed the side grades. So the weapons actually have, you can find blueprints and upgrade them through your gameplay. And then all the weapons get like an alternate fire. Like your pistol gets a quick triple shot. Your shotgun gets a charge ability where you get to just release it. Your James gun, not your Tommy gun, your James gun gets into like this wildfire mode. It's a neat way of marrying traditional first person shooter with kind of the Looney Tunes aspect you were talking about. Yes, I agree that they should have had more wacky guns, but the Devarnisher is fucking awesome as a gun itself. I enjoy it. It being able to just melt, a la the dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's a great addition to the lineup. I still have more guns to get. I still have a lot more game to play, but I've been enjoying the story. I've been enjoying the gameplay, and there are some tough parts to it. I've died a couple times just playing it on normal difficulty. There's one part where you solve a numbers puzzle, and he makes a quip about math being a subject in school. there is a meme reference he makes. I'm not sure if you ever heard the potion seller meme, but if not, there's a secret area that you get to, and he plays a riff on it. So I've been enjoying the reference. It seems like Troy Baker is having a lot of fun with this game, and definitely all of the voice acting, I think, is phenomenal in it. So I'm enjoying it. It's definitely a callback to the heyday of, like Dick Tracy movies and PI detectives. I didn't really know much about this game coming out, even with you guys talking about it, until the day of. I will say that I was given a review code by Fumi Games through Channel 3 to do this. So as I work through, I'll obviously put my final thoughts on it. But, for a $25, $30 game, I think if you enjoy FPSs, I think it's a great way to go, especially with the stylized and nuanced art direction. I think it goes very well. So I've been enjoying my time with it.
That's a key
I do
piece.
intend on
I
finishing.
forgot to mention that's a key piece because it's a $30 game. Like, you see other games, like I'm getting ready to slap down $70 for Saros. I keep saying that the name of that game in different ways. Hopefully I'm saying it right one of these times, but I'm about to slap down $70 for that game, and this game's $30. So yeah, to me, I mean, the animation is phenomenal. The game, like, if you're looking for a quick and easy, should I play this? Should I buy this? The gunplay is great and a lot of fun. The animation is phenomenal, and the story is not a negative. If whether you like it or not, I don't find it, or if you're enthralled by it or not, it's not a negative in any way. So it's to me, knocking so much off for like cheese references is silly. But again, we have different thoughts, we have different opinions, and yeah, to me, this is one of those things where don't just trust a review, go with your gut, or maybe someone who has played a game, or you're in a community where people playing games, ask them or get their opinion on it. Because to me, if I had just gone to their IGN and seen the review, I would have been like, oh, maybe this is, because I'm sure a lot of people still put a lot of stock in IGN. It may have prevented me from playing the game, but I've seen early trailers of the game. I, watched videos from the game. It's like, man, this looks great. I'm going to play it. So, get opinions from people you trust, and, but a lot of times just trust your own gut because you know what you like to play.
And that's a big thing that some of these people, analyzing the IGN review, saying as a big AAA game, people, a company like that might be able to shake off a 6, but a smaller independent studio, I'm not saying that Fumi Games is completely independent, but a smaller studio may not be able to shake off a 6, and they may be penalized because a reviewer might have a certain agenda. This guy comes in saying, I love noir, and it's not up to his standards. Like, I don't know. That's a rough thing to be up against. But like you said, I've been enjoying it. It's one of the few games I've been playing this week. So unless we have other things to talk about with Mouse, I'll go into my other games.
Yeah, no, I would say if anyone just short and dirty, I think people should play this game because I think if you like first-person shooters, this is and you like the art style, I think you would really enjoy it. So that's my thoughts on it. Just if you're a trophy hunter, be advised you may have to play through the game twice, or just play through with the guide. But yeah, no, I've really been enjoying Mouse PI. So.
All right. As usual, I've also been doing more Slay Spire 2. I've been doing some solo runs, some co-op runs. Man, they've done a couple different balancing patches, and it seems to be getting review bombed again because overseas players aren't liking the changes that they're making. And unfortunately, for an early access game, yeah, it's things that happen. But I've still been enjoying it. I've still been making sure that I've been going through trying to learn the ins and outs of some of the characters. Some of the older ones, I really like playing with the defect. There's a bunch of different nuances to the cards that he gets to be able to play. But Slay the Spire 2, again, it's early access. Rick, I haven't heard from you in a while. You and I need to talk about it, buddy, because it's been some time. I want to make sure you're still okay and make sure that we can talk some Slay the Spire when you're around. Otherwise, I did a little more Monster Hunter Stories 3, completed another side mission. Didn't really get to do much else in that. I went to play Crimson Desert yesterday, and as I was playing it is when I found our sewer line was backing up, so didn't get to do much more in that game despite wanting it. I played a bunch more Mugenics. Man, you talk about randomness. That game, I had one great run and brought my cats home, and then I had another run and they died within the first 2 fights. I was like, okay, that's enough Mugenics this time. Then I also started my run in Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which it just plays beautifully on the Switch 2, much better than either the first or second Hyrule Warriors played. And I don't know, this one seems to have its hook in me. I really want to get back to playing more, just enjoying, maybe doing a fight here or there and then putting it down for the day, upgrading my characters, being able to start learning the ins and outs of the smithing. But it's really a well put together game. My only problem with it is, since it takes place in the era before Tears of the Kingdom, and even in that case before Breath of the Wild, well, we know that during a time in Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda went back in time and Link was hurt. In Breath of the Wild, obviously he was in stasis for 100 years. So you'd think a game about Hyrule Warriors that has historically featured Link, you're like, well, what do they do? Well, in Age of Imprisonment, they introduce like a Zonai tech thing that looks and plays like Link. He's got a one-handed sword and a shield and has basically all the same moves, and it's a little hokey, but I enjoy it because it's the gameplay that they introduced. But the gameplay is really great, and I've been enjoying going through and starting my adventure there. So that's really what I've been playing. But there was something I was supposed to ask, and I can't remember. Now it's going to piss me off.
Well, I do have a question for you. If you want me to bring that to the table, and maybe after you had some time to think, you will. It'll jar your memory.
Go right ahead.
Have you been paying attention to any of the controversy in Helldivers 2 with the most recent war bond that's coming out this week?
So I did add an article a little bit later talking about super credits and how many war bonds there are, but I don't think I heard specifically about the controversy.
Basically, with the new war bond, and if you want to save this for that topic, we can. We don't have to talk about it now. If you think we want to lump that all together, we can do that.
Let's lump it all together when we get to that point, because there's a lot I do want to talk about that game, since I haven't touched it in maybe 2 months or so. God damn, what the hell was I going to say? I don't know. This makes for thrilling radio. I apologize, everybody. But so that's what I've been playing, and we can go on to the news. Alex, did you ever have GamePass?
I guess I could play on the computer, but I've never had GamePass, no.
Okay, so you're not reaping the benefits of the new CEO of Xbox Game Studios, which we'll go into more in a second. Basically, that we had the discussion last week that she came in and said Game Pass was too expensive. And we were going back and forth, and we said, will she drop the price? Does she have the power to? Does she answer to a board? Is she responsible to shareholders? Well, they actually did it. That crazy son of a bitch did it. She came in and made the announcement on April 21st that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate pricing update. And it wasn't just Ultimate, but basically Game Pass Ultimate drops from $30 down to $23, and PC Game Pass will drop from $16.50 down to $14. There is a big catch about this, though, and that she said beginning this year, future Call of Duty titles won't join Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass at launch. They didn't say ever. They just said at launch. They said that they will usually be added during the following holiday season, about a year later, while existing Call of Duty titles already in the library will continue to be available. So, there's a lot of going back and forth. People are pissed that they got a price drop, but it doesn't include Call of Duty. Other people saying that it's not enough of a price drop. Other people saying that this is the greatest thing ever, that Aisha is coming in and is being great. And we got a question on that a little bit later. But I don't know. I take this as an unequivocal win, because this is the first time I think any of these pass style service has gone down in price. Yeah, it's because they went up, so maybe this is an overcorrection, but I don't know. Microsoft could have easily just said, deal with it, people, and kept going about their day. It's, obviously you're not going to this isn't going to get you to buy Game Pass, but is this something how do you feel about it? Like the fact that we actually got a drop?
Well, I think you need to take wins where you get them, because I just got a notification from Netflix that my Netflix is going up to $20 a month, coming up soon. So, I tell you what, this sure makes Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer look like shit. They raised the price while they were in charge, and then all of a sudden, and I guess I shouldn't put that decision totally on them. The Microsoft as a whole, or whoever the decision makers or whoever's involved in that, raised the price, and then now they're going back down. And it's not just a reduction; it's a reduction less than a year after they announced the price increase. So it certainly makes Asha Sharma look good, because she's like, hey, this is too expensive, and we're going to cut the price. And they did. So now she looks a lot better after coming in as like someone who's involved in AI, and everyone's wary of AI. So they were kind of looking at her negatively. Now this is kind of a W for her. And look, at some point you got to realize that it's never going to be, we don't live in an ideal world, and a Game Pass is not going to be an ideal situation for everybody. So yeah, they may hold back some games. You may pay for the best version of Game Pass, but something like Call of Duty, which could make them a ton of money, well, they're not going to put it on Game Pass day and date. But you are getting a price decrease. So I think you have to take your wins where you get them. Expecting them to just kowtow to everything and give us everything you want. They're like, oh, we're going to price reduce, we're going to kick it back down to $15 and you're going to get Call of Duty. Well, these are large corporations, and I hate to tell you to be grateful for whatever you get, but as you mentioned, typically these subscription prices don't go down. All they do is go up. So I think it's a victory. And we already knew, from the tenure of Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer, that they were not going to put Call of Duty out day and date. So this isn't a change from that. They're continuing on as such. And who knows, maybe Call of Duty not coming to the service until a year later will help them keep the price of Game Pass down. And if that's the cost, if you have to sacrifice Call of Duty to get everything else, all the other benefits, and at a lower price, I think that you should take that. I think that most people should be happy with that. And if you really want to play Call of Duty day one, just buy the game. Just buy it.
Especially, I think we've had reports that the most recent Call of Duty suffered sales, and a lot of people were attributing it to being on Game Pass. So yeah, it's an interesting concept. And, I, for one, say nothing of value was lost, because I'm not ever going into Game Pass thinking I want it to play the latest Call of Duty, because I've never been that type of guy. But there are a lot of people. So, maybe there was a bunch of people who are upset about that. But yes, take the money you're saving, take that, I don't know, what is it, the $7 per month, multiply that over a couple months, and that subsidizes maybe your purchase of Call of Duty. Now, my concern is if they start making Call of Duty like $80. So it's one of those things I look at and I say, okay, I'll take the W. I'll take it. It's not necessarily going to get me back into Game Pass anytime soon, unless there's a game that comes out. I mean, PC Game Pass going back down to $14. The problem was, I think it was previously $10 and $11. So, we're still above what it used to be, but that's expected year over year. We're going to expect rising prices of things. Yeah, I still get notices about my Netflix and everything else going up. So for a service to go down, and we always talk about, well, the question is this service profitable? I think this is a notch into, well, this is profitable, because how do you lower the price if you're already losing out on profits from the service? And then you mix in, okay, well, they did take Call of Duty. Maybe that's a huge chunk. That's a problem, but they'll make it up in the sales of Call of Duty. People are going to buy Call of Duty as is. And like you said, I'll take it. I'll take a price drop. We actually have a question later about that. We'll ask at that point, but it was definitely an interesting start for Sharma, because she then makes another announcement within the same week that she held an internal meeting with the Xbox employees and says, hey, you know how we went away from the Xbox brand name and went to Microsoft Gaming? Well, we need that identity. We're going back, and now it's going to be Xbox again. We're doing away with the Microsoft Gaming. I liken this back to when Blizzard changed the name of Battle.net to Blizzard.net. And everybody was like, why the fuck did you do that? And then later they went back, okay, yeah, it's Battle.net. Everybody knows it is Battle.net. People still call it Battle.net. They're dead naming Battle.net, so we might as well just call it Battle.net. So I think this is an interesting concept that she goes back and says, yeah, whatever we did these last couple of years isn't working. And if it starts with a price decrease on Game Pass and it starts with us renaming back to what we were in the past, I'm all for it. It seems like, yeah, I was worried of her too, being her common AI fears. But now she's coming in going, yeah, we're going to make some decisions that may actually get us some goodwill back. Let's see what else she does. I'm still kind of hesitant.
Yeah, I mean, and bring back Twitter. Fuck this X nonsense. Personally, I think that there was a lot of fear, at least for people who are not 360, but Series X and S owners, or people who just have bought Xbox consoles in the past, that they were going to try to rebrand the entire division and get rid of all the Xbox people and bring in a whole brand new crop of people that necessarily didn't respect the brand that they had built. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, yes, you update logos, you update marketing, but if you have spent all these years building up the Xbox brand as your gaming division, leave it alone. Leave it alone. And so this is kind of a bit of goodwill thrown to players. Now, I'm not saying that you need to put all your hopes and dreams into the decisions of these Microsoft CEOs and these Microsoft bigwigs, but it is nice to see that they're like, hey, we're going to reduce the price. Hey, the Xbox brand is going to stick around. It makes you feel a little bit better about the situation. Now, getting into a sense of comfort is probably dangerous because then they upend it by doing something else that you may not like, but it's at least a few small W's for people who love playing on Xbox. And in life, sometimes you're just happy with a small W. So I think this is all good news. We'll have to see what happens. If they are, one thing to watch is if they are going to reduce the price of the services, you do have to watch to see if they are going to reduce the offerings or the quality offerings, because that was one of my things with Sony. When they upped the price of premium and extra as part of PlayStation Plus, I'm like, okay, well, to make these other tiers more enticing, are they going to make the PlayStation Plus Essential suck, essentially? So seeing what they offer, does it stop at Call of Duty, or they start taking everything away from day and date release? So that is something to keep an eye on. But in the immediate terms, having to pay less for your monthly, gaming bill is a good thing. Like, if Netflix, like, to use an example, as I did before, if they said, hey, you know what, we're going to cut your price down to $15 a month, I'd be like, that's phenomenal. Like, that's great. Like, now there may be caveats like, well, stuff will always stay on the service for, this amount of time. We may not put out as much content, but that immediate, cost right there, savings to me, is I would be happy with it. So.
And so I'm sure more to come, and we'll talk again a little bit later. We got some questions about this, and we'll address it at that point. But moving on to our next story, this is a little bit more in my world, but I have a question for you, Alex, especially in this world of controllers, that Valve has uploads a Steam controller unboxing video indicating that launch of the device might be imminent. Now, you might remember Valve was out there toting that there's 3 new pieces of tech coming from them this year, with some delays due to the recent RAM crisis. But the Steam controller, the Steam machine, and the Steam frame VR headset, well, it seems like the Steam controller has been sitting in warehouses ready to go, obviously not constrained by things like RAM or processors. And based off of a Wario64 post, that there was a review that came out that hinted the device will be $99. Now, this is either a very good thing or a very bad thing, depending on the way you're looking at it. For those of you who don't know, the Steam controller houses traditional controls as well as 2 touchpads that act as trackpads, very much like the Steam Deck. And then it's also got the back-facing buttons, the R4 and R5 and L4 and L5. Now, at $99, you might be thinking that's expensive. But let's look at the two possibilities. One, is it meant to combat or compare against the traditional Xbox controller or the PS5 controller or the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, at which point you're paying anywhere from $60 to $80? Or is it meant to combat the what are those? The DualSense Edge and the Microsoft Elite, which you're spending a lot more. I personally think, based off of its features, that it's meant to be more in line with the traditional controller, in case that you're probably spending more than what you would on a controller, but I feel that's a high quality build compared to some of the others. But that being said, it's also a PC predominant controller, meaning that you're going to be able to plug it in. Steam's going to give you kind of your ability to tinker around with it or build new what are those called? Layouts and themes. So I don't know. What do you think about the pricing and its potential in the gaming world, Alex?
So we are talking about just the controller, right? That's what's $99.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not a huge fan with the cost of controllers growing as much as it has. What I will say is I'm not surprised it would be that much, because as we've heard, the estimated cost of the Steam machine, or whatever it ends up being called, it's going to be up there. So obviously the price of the controller is going to be, it's a premium price. But what does annoy me, I'm willing to pay the price for a controller if the quality is good. And one of the things I have run into, I yelled at Nintendo for this, so I'm going to yell at Sony for it too. If you're going to sell me a controller for like $70, why the fuck does it have drift? Like, I'm starting to get drift in all of my controllers. And so that's one of those things. If I am paying a premium price on this controller, it needs to act like a premium controller. Like, I'm tired of drift in my controllers. It's ridiculous. Like, I actually have probably had to buy more controllers for this generation than I have for any previous generation. Now, the DualSense feels like it's got heft to it. It feels like a nice controller. But like I said, I'm now on my, I've had two controllers that have drift. And I'm like, why do these cost so much if I'm continually having these problems with these, consecutive controllers?
So interestingly enough, and this is, you may not be familiar with this term, some listeners may be, but in the Steam controller, you're talking about drift, the thumbsticks being used are magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks. At least that's what I'm reading from reports. Let's see. Yes, they are right on the main page. Basically, instead of little actuators, or so to speak, they are magnetically driven thumbsticks, meaning that there's no chance of drift because there's nothing that wears off and causes the stick to drift. So I'm with you there, that if you're going to be spending mucho dinero on a controller, it better have some long lasting capabilities, or at least some support. And I will say Steam support is pretty good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they go well above and beyond. So it's one of those things that I say it really is interesting. I'm waiting to see maybe some of the tech YouTubers get their hands on it to really see how it holds up. But I'm kind of excited at a new entry in the, at least PC market, because I currently use an Xbox controller for my PC gaming. And I always am looking for something a little different, see if there's something a little bit better or maybe works. But yeah, with my Xbox Series controller has worked for years now. I'm happy with it. So I know you won't be using it, but this has everything. It's got the feedback, the gyro controls, a magnetic attachment to charge it. I don't know. I think it's going to be a nice piece of tech. But I don't know. Any other thoughts on it before we move on?
No, I mean, my only thought is, it's, like you said, it's not going to be something that I am going to use myself. But if the quality is there, and this is a controller that will last me a long time, I would spend that much for a controller. The only problem is I find that sometimes the life of some of the controllers I use and have spent $70 on is as good as third party or as long as like third party $30 controllers that I bought at other times. So that's my thing is I've had issues with controllers and the quality versus the cost. And, it's just one of those things where if I'm going to, spend this much, I may very well spend for one PlayStation that lasts the entire lifetime that I use it versus how many controllers do I have to buy during that time just to play games. So, that's my thing is the cost up front is like, man, that's too damn expensive. But if you dig beneath it and you look at the specs and the quality is there, it's not, it's better than buying 2 controllers at $70. So it all depends in what you're getting for that price.
Well said. Well said. You know what else was said out there? Our boy Shuhei Yoshida, the guy that every week you look at our description. What do we say in our description, Alex?
Shuhei's in there. I can't remember. I stare at it every week when I do the write-up. But if you believe JT, no one reads the descriptions anyway, so...
there's that. So Shuhei Yoshida says, Daryl's main man, Jimmy, the world-class, whatever his freaking name is, Jimmy Ryan, fired him from PlayStation Studios because Shuhei didn't listen to Jimmy. Basically, during a meeting he was having, speaking at a 2026 edition of Australian Games Festival Alt Games, the 31-year-old PlayStation veteran introduced himself and recounts his long career. He helped Santa Monica to make God of War, Naughty Dog to make Uncharted. So he's got a lot of history, and that's not including the Ridge Racer comment. But he said Jim Ryan wanted to remove him from first party because he didn't listen to him. He asked to do some ridiculous things, and he said no. So, Shuhei is not one for holding back, it seems. And I don't know. I always had wondered, because I didn't follow PlayStation as closely as some of my fellow hosts. But this is something that I've always said, that Jimmy Ryan, I don't know. Jimmy Ryan's led PlayStation through some successful years, but I don't know, he's made some interesting decisions, including live service green lighting, as well as firing Shuhei Yoshida. Alex?
Well, as we know, Shuhei Yoshida will always be a legend in the PlayStation community and part of the PlayStation family. I feel like, we naturally gravitate to people that work for PlayStation or Nintendo or Xbox. I felt like overall people kind of really liked Kaz Hirai, Jack Tretton, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think many people outside of one person in the LSR household will really ever miss Jim Ryan. I don't think anyone gives a fuck whether Jim Ryan, is off the grid for the rest of his life or whatever. Like, I can respect I would love to know what the ridiculous things he asked Yoshida to do that Yoshida's like, no. And we got to remember that, like, obviously American culture and Japanese culture and like European culture, they're all very different. So you have these high executives working in, together, and you've got, Jim Ryan, and you talking about he's given these what maybe he thinks are completely logical, reasonings, asking Yoshida to do these things where Yoshida's like, no, that's dumb. Well, good for Yoshida for sticking to his guns. Like I said, I would love to know the innards of this and what exactly went down, but even if you can respect Jim Ryan as someone who did guide the launch of the PlayStation 5, and, during his tenure, we saw a lot of successful, movie adaptations or television adaptations of some of their properties. There's also some blunders that he made that, or like bad decisions during that tenure that you probably can ascribe to the guy in charge. So it sounds like if you give Yoshida enough of a mic, he might be willing to spill some more. But it sounds like Jim. I want to keep saying Jack Trenton. Jim Ryan. It sounds like Jim Ryan had a little bit of an ego problem. Like, instead of working with people he saw, you would gather from this, himself, he's like, I'm the boss and you're going to listen to me. At least that's what I gather. So maybe a little bit of, I don't know, little dick syndrome there for Jim Ryan. But yeah, it'd be very interesting to hear Yoshida explain everything if he would ever go into detail, because obviously he doesn't work for Sony anymore, and Jim Ryan's not there, so he doesn't need to protect Jim Ryan, or not piss off Jim Ryan because it may not get him a job again. He didn't have to worry about Jim Ryan thing. So I would love for someone to expound upon this with Yoshida. But yeah, Jim Ryan, even if you agree that he did some good things, still probably not your favorite Sony executive. I don't know. Matt, how do you feel about that?
So interestingly enough, with the way the transition worked, Yoshida was pushed into supporting like the indie development portion of the studio, and then after leaving, now he kind of helped fund his own and found his own indie studio. And he says how cool it is because it now allows him to do other things. He isn't restricted to PlayStation. He can go to any studio, talk to any podcast, go anywhere and talk about gaming in general. And he actually talks about that, where he feels that indie gaming is the future, not that AAA games, because they become generic. He says what goes into a AAA game is not just one person's vision. It's a team's vision. It's a, let's make it work for the purpose of the game. That it's, you make sacrifices to other portions to ensure you roll out your product when it's due. But that the future of gaming, that indie developers really make it for the love of the game, that they're doing it, yes, to make money. Everybody wants to make money making games, but that they're really trying to push boundaries, to do different things. And this is something I've said for a long while, that indie developers have this passion for. How many times I see a Reddit thread saying, I quit my job to do my passion project, to make my game. Now, I don't know how these people make it work, but you see the love that they have for something that they are pushing out. And, unfortunately, in this environment, there's a billion different indie games. And we talked about this last week, where there's now on indie.io, Indie Pass, where maybe you get to experience games you wouldn't otherwise see. So I think there's validity to him saying, like, yeah, AAA has become generic. And unfortunately, that's what's happening in this world. Companies are seeing these AAA games as cash cows, ways to fund their studios and pay back shareholders to make money. Whereas indie developers are making it because it's like, I have a great idea for a game and I'm going to do this come hell or high water. What do you think of those comparisons?
I mean, I think it's correct. I mean, you look at, we're both playing Mouse PI. I don't know if I would ever see anything, like Mouse PI being published by Sony or Microsoft. Yes, AAA studios and AAA games are, I think, a part of what makes gaming so successful. But the other part of that is indie games. You need those smaller, more bite-sized chunks that have a lower buy-in, so that you're not just paying $70 for every single experience. It makes gaming more affordable, and you can still get those quality experiences in. And I remember the first time that Shuhei Yoshida kind of came into being, like, in my mind. Like, I didn't know who Shuhei Yoshida was, but then I remember he had gone on and he had been asked questions after the launch of the PS4 about how, a lack of titles to play for the PS4, because a lot of times you'll find after a system launches, well, you got one main game to play, the game that launches with the, like, say, your Mario Kart World or whatever, or back in the day on the PS3, your Resistance Fall of Man. But after that, things can be a little thin, and companies can take criticism for, not having enough games to play. And I remember that Yoshida snapped back with, well, on the PlayStation 4, we have Until Dawn, and we have Resogun, and these are really great exclusive games. And those were kind of my introduction to both of those games, which I played both of them and enjoyed the heck out of both of them. Resogun and Until Dawn are both really great games, but I didn't really know about them until Yoshida's comments. So that's really when not only did those games kind of come into being for me, but Yoshida as an executive kind of became established as like a guy to pay attention to. So, I mean,
and it's a little self-serving, the fact that he now works for an indie studio, but I still think what he says is valid, that there's a way that these indie developers look at gaming and say, how can we stand out? And that was one of the questions he asked. He was asked, he said, well, studios that have had success before are it's easier for them to find an audience. But he says, you develop on the community. They become the advocates of your game. They become the testers. They provide great feedback. And when they're successful, the community will feel they're part of the success too. It's very, very important to have a strong sense of community support. So that's something I think as you get bigger into the AAA gaming sphere, you lose. I mean, last week we talked about how Sony is rewarding their player base by giving one person access to be in Gran Turismo 7. Like, yeah, that to me, that's so far gone from going to your community and supporting them. That's just did Sony have to do that? No, they didn't. But it just seems like it's a token effort, whereas indie studios lean heavily on their community for feedback, for things that they may not be aware of, because they don't have the large testing groups. They don't have the time or effort to put the games through the rigorous testing that a community may be able to. So while it's self-serving, because he now owns and operates an indie studio, I still think he has said nothing wrong or incorrect.
Well, realistically, part of the reason why I think we're both quick to agree with him is because this isn't the first time we've heard these things. He's not like breaking news. This is something we've seen in action for a long time now. I mean, you look at the potholes that a lot of the AAA teams fall into, where it's like, well, we have a formula that works. So at Ubisoft, we have to put out 1,000 Assassin's Creed. And that's how we're successful, is we have Just Dance and Assassin's Creed. And no matter how many times people roll their eyes, we have these sequels that feel safe. And then you have things where if, game studios, like they try something new, and if it fails, well, that game studio, the game studio's gone. Like they're just wiped out. They're nuked. So we see what he says in practice. I think you'd be hard pressed to find people, or a lot of people, who would argue that AAA games are more creative or more risky than, I guess I shouldn't say risky. They're more creative and more novel than, let me start that. I want to make sure I don't get it tangled up. I think most people would agree that indie games is where most of your innovation and your creativity are, and a lot of the AAA games have become stagnant because they have to be successful and they have to sell, and to keep from sinking entire studios or losing companies a lot of money. There we go. Got it out. So, again, I don't think he's breaking any news, but this is stuff we've seen in action for a while now. And I agree with what he says. And once you're outside of, you work at PlayStation for a long time, and of course that seems like, for a lot of people, that can seem like the perfect way to do things, because PlayStation is very successful, or at least has been very successful, and they generally sell a ton of consoles, and they make very highly critically rated games. So now that he's out and he can look at it from a different perspective, his words ring true, and he, again, has a different perspective. So it may not just be like you're right, he does have an interest and a stake in indie games being successful, but getting a different viewpoint, it may just be how he feels now after leaving the machine that is Sony.
Again, I think Shuhei has such a storied career, and now he's moving on to something that's truly like a passion product for him. I think it's great to see these intellectuals and enlightened game developers get to flex their muscle and not just sit there and follow the horn of some dictator like Jimmy Ryan. On to one of our last articles. Alex, you mentioned something earlier, and I would say, do you agree it's time to either A, make super credits easier to obtain, or B, maybe start discounting some of the older war bonds? You mentioned that there's a controversy out with one of the latest war bonds coming in Helldivers 2.
Yes, the Exosuit Experts, I believe it's called. So I guess you wanted me to go into, sorry. They are, for the first time, selling as behind the war bond. So you got to pay, if you don't want to farm super credits, you pay essentially $10 to get access to a war bond, which then you have to use another in-game currency, war bond medals, to buy the things in there. But they're putting vehicles, they're putting exosuits behind the paywall. And a lot of people in the community are not happy about that, and have spoken out about that, because as well as a lot of the content creators for the Helldivers community, because it's the first time really, yes, typically in war bonds you will find different skins for vehicles, But this time they have locked vehicles, I believe, for the first time behind a paywall, behind a war bond. Because I think all the others you could just pay for with requisition slips. So, your requisition slips, which everyone is maxed out on now because there's no reason to use requisition slips in the game whatsoever. You now have a thing where you have the exosuits and vehicles behind a war bond paywall, and people are also accepted because there's no, this basically kills mech customization. Like, if you wanted to customize your own exosuit or whatever, you can't do that now. They basically killed that off by selling you all different versions of the exosuits. Also, there was, for the campaign against the bots on Cyberstan, they nerfed a lot of the heavy armor for things like tanks and for the mechs, the exosuits. Now, it's been announced, I believe, that they are going to buff those things, or at least buff the armor on the exosuits before this Warbond comes out this week. So, obviously they're trying to sell you something, and it doesn't make sense for it to be completely useless, but the community has commented on the fact that the armor on our vehicles has been nerfed, and now they're buffing it right before they sell us a war bond. So the community is not happy about those things. So, and I've even heard calls for because they can't hold this back and fix the things in the war bond or put new things in the war bond. There have been creators that have called for them to give it to everybody for free. So it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, and again, this being its 23rd war bond, meaning that they've had a war bond almost every single month since launch. I think the other interesting thing here to look at, they haven't done another free war bond since the first one at launch. And we know it's a live service game. This is their way of making money and to continue to support the game. I get that. But this kind of goes back to my conversation on PS Plus and saying we keep getting these shite games or leftover games put on the service, or they stop adding PS4 or PS3 games or Vita games. As the time goes on, it's just they stop. The value of what you're getting is less and less. So when I take this to Helldivers, I say, why can't they do a yearly free war bond that gives you some of the items from the past year's war bond? Like, it would serve both people. The people who want to get that stuff immediately will either earn the super credits or spend the money to buy the super credits to buy those war bonds. Or the people who don't have that money, or maybe are more patient or coming in well after the game, well after the war bond is released, have access to those items without having to drop a ton of money. What is it, $10 to $13 per war bond? If you're looking at that per month, yes, you can earn those in games. And this was one of the strengths that they had when this game released, saying you didn't have to spend $1 on the game other than buying it. You can find all of them. But as they gave us less and less and fewer reasons to play, you look at it and go, all right, well, I'm not keeping up with the war bonds. Am I really being left behind? And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because as you don't play the game, as you lose the capability to keep up with the war bonds, you lose what the meta is, you lose what access to those weapons are, and now you add in legendary war bonds like the Halo war bond or the Killzone war bond. Now you look at this and go, all right, why am I going to get back into the game? Like, I'm not going to sit there and farm super credits for 20 hours just to buy 1 or 2 war bonds. I'm not going to also just give them $14, $15 a month just to get these war bonds, especially if I don't have a lot of reasons to play. Again, with a game that, and you've said this multiple times, that they don't have an end game, it's just the endless war. I think they need to start thinking about the way that these war bonds are issued and maybe start figuring out how they can give players more value by saying, all right, well, yeah, we're instituting a new war bond, and maybe there's going to be a couple items from the past year that we released in premium war bonds. If you want to get to those items sooner, you can just go buy the war bond. But maybe here's a free war bond for the people who have been fighting the good fight for a while. That's at least my idea on what they could do to salvage this.
Well, another big criticism of the community is that you have to pay for this game. This is not a free-to-play game. You have to pay $40 for this game, which, again, is, yes, less expensive than a lot of other games out there. But people are not happy that it's like, hey, I have to pay for this game, and then I'm paying for war bonds. So it's like a free to play. It's a mixture of a premium game with a free to play approach to gaming. The one thing that so this is the bad thing about this war extending to whenever, is that we don't know when they're going to come out with their next game. But right now, it seems like, so yes, you have to pay an entry fee to play the game. And then to supplement or to feed the continuing of the war and for them to putting out new content, it seems like they need to put out these war bonds to make money off of that to continue to feed Helldivers 2. I have issues with the game, but I mean, I appreciate how much they have allowed us to. I mean, everyone knows how to farm super credits, and they haven't nerfed it, so I appreciate that. One of the things that has been brought up that I have heard is that on higher difficulties, you should be able to earn more super credits. You know, instead of like a 10 super credit bundle, each bundle of super credits should be worth more. And occasionally, you know, you can find a 100 super credit bundle. It's rare, but you can find those. But to me, this is kind of the pitfalls of having a game that extends this long and trying to continue to put out content for it. Is you have to make money to keep feeding the game if you're not going to move on to a new game anytime soon. The problem to the community is that it looks like you're just greedy because you're now locking things behind war bonds and that you used to be to give first for free, or like you would use in-game currency to buy into them like vehicles, and you're charging us to play the game from the outset. So there may be nothing devilish behind it for them putting out these war bonds. It may again just be them needing money and funds to continue to support the game. But from you know, I can understand players are like, wait a minute, I pay for this game, but it also now has a free to play aspect to it. If it's not free to play, but I'm having to pay for the war bonds too, if I don't feel like, you know, grinding those super credits. I think someone did math, and I can't remember who it was, but it might have been on Lieutenant Buzz Lightyear's channel, where he mentioned that all told, it could take up to like around 170 hours to grind out super credits to open all the war bonds. And, you know, for me, you know, I look at some of the war bonds and like some of the stuff they put in there, it's like, how much new content can you continually give us when you've got 20 plus war bonds out there and you're giving us like, we're having to pay 50 medals for like a different shade on our ATV or a different shade of mech. The cosmetics, like some of that stuff in there it costs too much as far as the in-game medal currency goes. So, I mean, overall, to me, my biggest issue with the game is, again, there's no end in sight for the story aspect of this game. And it feels very hollow to put that much time into a game, and there'd be no end in sight in that regard. But I understand why people are upset with more and more stuff being locked behind $10 war bonds. Again, you can grind out the super credits if you want, but not everybody has time to do that. And also, the amount of ship customization and stuff that we've gotten, it's just dwindled. Like I said, there's an entire currency in requisition slips, which are, you know, pretty common throughout levels that you just can't use anymore unless you want to donate to some on the superstation or whatever. But I find that to be mostly useless. So I think that the community and the developers definitely don't see eye to eye, and I think that's becoming apparent. And it's just more of the pitfalls of you continuing trying to support a game for so long, for years after release, and trying to, you know, raise funds to continue that, but also the player base getting tired of you locking more and more behind war bonds. Personally, I think the war should have ended by now. I think if Arrowhead thinks that this war can carry on forever, I think that's a huge mistake and a misread by them. Now, you still do have every night 50,000 plus people playing this game, but you figure how many that compared to how many people were playing, it's a massive drop off for your audience. So, and if you're a Helldivers 2 player, if you know how long Helldivers, you know, was relevant and had people playing, maybe we should have seen this coming, but I understand why the player base is upset. You know, I am upset at Arrowhead for different reasons, but I can understand why people take issue with how the game is unfolding and the pay structure. I get it.
Alrighty. So now we get to. I'm horrible at transitions, by the way. I apologize, everybody. Too bad.
We are doing our transitions for years now, so I think this is like ambrosia, food of the gods by comparison, Matt.
I don't propose or perceive to know how to do transitions.
Speaking
so
of transitions,
in this
here's
transition
a new topic.
our topic is now questions of the week, which we posted our question. We got a couple different questions from people in the community this week. And guess what? Since Tricky isn't here and he isn't editing, you don't get the stupid soundbite. Congrats, everybody. So we got a couple things. First one isn't a question. It's Thomas with his usual Thomasisms. McDonald's might be doing a subscription. Okay.
For what? Like
diabetes.
Was it like tied to the Happy Meals? Like you pay a subscription and your kid can come in and get so many Happy Meals to collect all the toys? Like,
oh dear God,
I was younger,
I can imagine.
Because my dad and I, when I was much, much younger, he would take me out on Tuesday nights for dinner, and we would almost always go to McDonald's for a couple year stretch of my life because I wanted to go get the Happy Meal and get the toy. So me, Alex, then I'd be like, subscription service. Let's see if it's tied to Happy Meals. I'm like, Dad, we got to get that. I don't know if adults, like, I know people still go get coffee, they get breakfast. I know people still do go eat at McDonald's when they're adults, but as a subscription service, I just don't know, like, what exactly could, like, you pay a fee and you go in and get, like, you get special discounts or you get so many free items. I don't know. You get so many, like, I don't even know if they have, like, a loyalty service now where if you spend so much money or you buy so many meals, you get a meal for free. Who knows?
I'll pay a subscription for those hash browns.
I mean, yeah, but is it
Maybe
worth
the
it?
fries.
Like, are you going to McDonald's that often? Like every now and again, getting an Egg McMuffin sounds good, but that time, like that's like maybe once a year for me.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. I guess we shall see. Thomas, keep us informed.
Yeah, Thomas. Now that you brought this up, you have to let us know when the this goes into effect and what it actually entails.
Will writes in and asks, is Aisha Schwarmer truly Xbox's savior? I don't think so, but she's certainly making waves. Any thoughts, Alex? Is Aisha going to be Xbox's savior?
But it's a good start. I think there was a lot of people who were very dubious of the hire. And that whole situation, like we said, it was very unusual to have your two leads leave at the same time under various, murky circumstances, and then this person who works primarily with AI come in and be like the person now. So I don't think people trusted that a lot. But I mean, you got to start somewhere building trust. So it's not, we shouldn't, call her a savior or anything yet, but baby steps in positive direction.
Curtis writes in, will people ever learn live service games aren't guaranteed to last and refocus on single player games like Sony made their name with? Yeah, I think people are starting to learn more and more that live service games are not everything they cracked out to be. Between, God, what the hell is the names now? Concord and High Guard. I'm actually, Marathon seems to be surprising that people are still playing that. But I think the other thing people are saying now is Sony has focused and made their name on being single player studio. That I think there's some concerns that maybe they aren't being inventive enough and they're relying too heavily on certain aspects of what made their single player games fun. So I don't know, Alex, is there a place for maybe both of these still in the gaming world?
I mean, absolutely. I think we have seen free to play models work. Now game companies have to be willing to still move off those games and go to something new. But they're viable still. I mean, you see that something like Rocket League is still thriving. It went to a free-to-play model. Now we have seen, seemingly, if you believe the Epic Games and Sweeney, that with all the the mass firings they recently had, that there's been a downturn in Fortnite. So not everything can live forever. So you gotta, companies still have to manage things properly. If you go to a model where you're doing a ton of licensing just to make a whole bunch of cash, that may not turn out all that well in the end for you, depending on how often you do it. But, single player story driven games will always have their place in the gaming industry, but also live service. You don't want to flood the market with a bunch of crap because we know that what that gets us. But for the, there is an audience for that. People may have one live service game they devote themselves to, and that's kind of what their comfort game is. So when they finish a game and they don't know what to play, maybe that live service game is that for them. Or, maybe a couple nights a week for a couple hours they play that live service game and they're connected to a community. So I don't think Sony's issue was they bet too heavily on it and they were very inexperienced with it and it blew up in their face. But as long as you are making good decisions, you can make it work. If you can read the room, if you can read your audience, you can make a good live service game. But you can't flood the market with crap. And that goes for everything. That's not just live service. That's multiplayer games. That's single player games. That's story-driven games. Anything. You can't just flood the market with crap or just with a ton of stuff. So, because something's bound to fail in that regard. So, you just got to be smart.
Yeah, and there's a limited number of gamers.
Yeah,
there aren't infinite number of gamers, and you expect them to spend all of their time just on your game.
Which is
good luck with that.
Part of the reason why I think Helldivers 2 should have probably had an end game in plan by now. Yeah, I'm not going to let that go. Like even if you wanted to live for this long, and with the push into Cyberstand being the elimination of the bots, there should have been a realization that this has to end at some point and it can't live forever. But no, I mean, I definitely support Curtis in the assertion that we need to focus on, single player games and story driven games, because not everybody wants to log on and play with other random yahoos. They just want their game experience to be determined, by how they experience it. But I don't think that live service games aren't, viable. It takes the right idea, the right company to pull it off. So,
alrighty. Roberto writes in, it's abundantly clear that Xbox is going through a complete 180. What we thought would be a sunsetting of Xbox is beginning to look like a sunrise. With Game Pass pricing being slashed, a flexibility option being explored, and this new recommitment to players, we could very well see the renaissance for Xbox. Do you think PlayStation will follow suit? A slashing to PS Plus subscription and a recommitment to exclusives would help Sony in an otherwise lost generation. I don't think we're going to see it. It's very difficult to say that, the front runner will make a change just because, their competitors make this change. I think we saw Sony do what they did with PS Plus because it was working so well for Xbox. I don't know. We'll see. Xbox doesn't report player counts with their Game Pass subscription, so I don't know. Alex, I don't see PlayStation lowering their price anytime soon.
No, if anything, it may stay stable. I think that what got Xbox in trouble is that they tried to raise the price. People, I think people are used to the price of PlayStation Plus as is, and I think a lot of the naysayers and the grumbling has stopped. Now, whether you think that the top of the line premium tier or extra are worth it, that's another discussion. But it seems like a lot of the issues with pricing for Sony have died down. Now, if they were to immediately or announce a price increase coming up, that's going to get the fire stoking again. That's going to get people talking. But I think as is, they're fine. With this, if Microsoft had left their prices as they were, I don't think there would have been an outcry for a reduction in price. It's only because the prices went up. So Sony staying where they are, they'll stay out of the limelight, stay out of trouble, stay on people's good side. But if they try to raise the price in comparison to, say, Game Pass, which generally Game Pass gives you more than what PlayStation Plus gives you, then I think that's a step in the wrong direction and you will have people coming out with pitchforks. But Sony's not, that benevolent. They're not going to give us a price break. They're not going to reduce the price, but if anything, maybe this whole situation will keep them from raising the price. It may keep things stable for a while.
I would hope that's the case because, again, a lot of big reasons I gave up the Game Pass and PS Plus was because for what I was paying, again, I think the value was there for the amount of games you have access to. I think for the value for me was not there because I wasn't playing even a quarter of the games that were available. I think it's good service if I want to try a game and I go, well, okay, I can try it. And maybe if I'm on the fence about a game, I can pay that to rent it for the month and then maybe wait for it to lower its price so I'm not paying more for the game than what it was. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see a change in the PS Plus subscription or what they're going to be doing, I think Alex is right. Maybe this makes them stand pat a little bit longer.
You know, one of the big problems for Sony, it's not just what they have to consider, what their offerings are, worth to people, what that value is with the PlayStation Network and PlayStation Plus. They are going to be compared, and PlayStation Plus will be compared to Microsoft Game Pass or Xbox Game Pass. Anytime pricing comes up, you're inevitably going to get compared to the other one. So Sony raising the price puts them under that scrutiny, under the microscope, and people say, well, this is what they're getting on Game Pass, and this is what I'm getting for PlayStation Plus. Why am I paying for this for PlayStation Plus? If the price of PlayStation Plus ever is more than what it costs for Game Pass, inevitably, people are going to be like, why the hell am I paying this much for PlayStation Plus when I'm not getting day-and-date games? So that is another problem for them. It's not just about what they think the value is of their own service. It's how they're going to be compared to their biggest competitor.
And that's where I keep going back saying that their Sony specifically is losing out by not providing access on the basic level of PS Plus to games that haven't been there for a while. If they put, I don't know, freaking Spider-Man Miles Morales on there 1 year, and it's been 4 years since they did that, maybe it's time to circle back and give other paying customers a chance to get that game added to their profile. I just think they're losing out.
Well, I don't understand if you ever have a service like this, if these are your own, like if something like Miles Morales goes on the service, why would it ever go off? Like the people who are going to buy that game have already bought that game. So just leave it. Even something like Horizon, the people who want to play Horizon have bought that game. So just leave it on the service. All of your first party stuff should just stay. If you're selling me on a service like Extra and Premium, all of your first party stuff should go on there and should live on there. There's no reason for it to come off. Because with Sony, if you're putting it on there, it's been a year or longer, and you clearly have recognized by doing that we really can't make much more money off on just a sale of this game. We're putting on this service, this subscription service, as an additive to make it more attractive. So it should never come off. It should always stay on.
And the last question actually goes into our topic of the week.
Topic of the week. Well, fine then. Fuck you, Matt.
Will asks, will y'all submit to the PSN's upcoming age verification mandate? Before I get into that, topic of the week is crap. Where was I going with this? I don't know. Forget it. Who cares? Moving on. PlayStation is going to require age verification for certain online features. This article coming from InsiderGaming.com, written by Sam Sepiol, basically saying PlayStation to lock communication features behind age verification later this year. A new email from Sony Interactive Entertainment reveals a new age verification requirement for PlayStation users to continue using communication features. It will be implemented globally, and players will need to verify their age to continue using PlayStation communication services, such as messages and voice chat. If the player opts not to verify their age, they can still use other services, such as game trophies and the store. It doesn't go into saying how they are going to verify your age. If there's anything like what is happening with Discord, it's probably going to be providing some sort of picture of your ID or something like that, which I am inherently against, because things like PlayStation, how many times have we talked about PlayStation getting their information breached? I don't see PlayStation having the same problems as like Discord and Roblox have had, where predators are using it to at least not as well or widely as those services to target children and things like that. Again, this is a company going into government overreach and establishing a new process to quote unquote protect the children. And it frustrates me because these companies just suck at managing data and continue to have their data hacked and breached. So I don't know. It's not like I'm using any of the online services that need age verification right now. So it's not like I'll be going into it. And if my friends and I go to do anything, generally we're on Discord anyways. This is just, once again, just PC is you're able to do so many other things that these consoles are starting to restrict you to. So I don't know. Well, no, I won't be doing the age verification thing with PlayStation. Alex?
So it locks me out of what? Because if I have to, then I guess I will have to. Who knows? Maybe if there's enough pushback from the community, or their numbers for like communication die down or something like that. Some analytic dies down. Maybe they'll reverse track and be like, okay. But it locks you out of voice chat, correct?
That's what it seems. That and other chat features.
Okay. Well, I don't really want to talk to any motherfuckers. I mean, granted, I used voice chat for Ghost of Yote, and it seemed like everyone I was talking to was an adult. So, nobody said anything inappropriate. It was all good. We were working together. It was fine. So if it's just voice chat, then, I mean, I don't use...
I think it's all chat features.
I was going to say, I don't use Discord for voice chat, so I guess I could learn how to do that. But, I mean, I guess that would, in Helldivers 2, if I ever played with anybody from the show, or you and I played, I couldn't communicate with you. I mean, I guess we could always do it old school, and like I could call you up on a phone and be like, hey man, what's up? Put you on loudspeaker. But I'm very wary of giving, especially a picture of my government issued ID to a company, because it just puts more of my information out there. And again, like you said, Sony's been hacked a couple times. And like, it's not like Sony's the only one, but the more information you put out there, the better chance you're going to have something stolen, and it can negatively impact your life. So I've never had an issue or acted out of the standards and, reasonable behavior when it comes to the PlayStation Network. So this is new ground, and people are naturally going to push back and be like, why the fuck do we have to do this for something that's, worked for, because, some people got to fuck it up and be weirdos on, different, I don't like the idea, and if I can avoid it at all cost, I will, because I really don't want Sony to have a picture of just my full government ID, because I don't trust them with, I mean, I guess I have to trust them with my credit card info to pay for stuff, but outside of that, like, I don't really want you to have much of my information, because God knows what will happen to it if you get, breached again, or it gets out there. So, yeah, companies can't give you 100% protection guarantee. So, like, how do you feel good about it?
It's interesting because, my Steam account, I made that in 2004. It is still active. And it still asks me every once in a while to verify my birth date to watch mature content on their service. I'm like, my account is old enough to do that now. But I look at this and I go, well, like we said, they've gotten breached. We've had issues with them. What Discord was doing something similar, but they're not automatically requiring people. They are using AI to kind of, guesstimate people's ages. And in that case, it's not restricting them from using Discord, because Discord's primary purpose is voice chat. But it may restrict their access to adult themed channels in Discord, or adult themed servers. So I look at this and I go, Sony, you're responding to, what is it? What is it called? Where the heck is it? The Online Safety Act. It's, I understand there's a need to protect people. But there's also, I go back to, it's parents' responsibilities understanding what their kids are doing online. These companies are making it easy for kids to get online without, their parents being aware. And in some cases, kids are more tech savvy than their parents. They're able to do these things without their parents' knowledge. But that, to me, again, speaks to parents not being involved in their kids' gaming habits. And that needs to happen. A lot of parents tend to push it off as, well, I don't understand this. I'm not going to engage with it. But they need to get involved. And unfortunately, now we're depending on companies to protect our information, us adults, because other people are fucking it up and doing shit with kids that they shouldn't be doing. So I don't know. It depends how much I want to play with my friends on these on PlayStation, which, to Curtis's point, it seems like if they're going to focus a lot on single player games, I'm not going to have to worry too much about playing with my friends. So I don't know. I definitely won't be doing this. not without some really, really good reason. And in that case, again, we're giving them a picture. They're probably using AI to analyze it. So I don't know. There's more to come as it relates to what exactly they're going to be asking those players to do. So again, I'll just do what you can to protect your information. And the second part of this is Sony is had an update that's been out for a little bit now. But people are starting to get into find out that their digital games are potentially checking in to verify, and that led people to start talking about, well, maybe there's a rumor that there's a new DRM added, that now you have to call in to Sony, or I say call in, but your system has to check in with Sony every 30 days to verify your ownership. So if you're a predominantly offline player, that might mean that some of your games suddenly become defunct. But does it play? Does Blue Sky account stated they received word from anonymous insiders that the DRM issue is unintentional. From what they gathered, Sony accidentally broke something while fixing an exploit. They know about the confusing UI for a while, but they didn't see it as urgent. Hopefully a clarifying statement soon. So I look at that and I go, okay, we'll ask the question in our group chat. Do we truly believe that this was an accident, that, players are getting DRM checked every 30 days? Or was this a sly way of the company putting something out and gauging the reaction? Do you understand kind of what we're looking at, Alex? Did I summarize it well enough that you can comment?
Well, I had a cat meowing at the door, so I had to let him in. So I might have missed the first part of it. But yeah, if you could just give me a quick little. The Sony was fixing something, but the word is they broke something, or what they're saying, so it wasn't intentional.
Players were getting DRM check notices on some of their games, and they attributed it to a patch Sony put in, and basically are saying, well, now Sony's digital games are going to get DRM checked every 30 days. And somebody else came and reported, well, it's not actually that. It was a broken thing, but it wasn't urgent for Sony to fix. So some people like Will are saying, well, maybe it was them implementing this engaging reaction. They're saying, well, no, it wasn't really what it is. Now that they're seeing a negative reaction to it.
Well, if we know anything about these companies, and it's not just Sony, it's Microsoft, it's Nintendo, they want as much control over their IP as possible. And they will take any steps necessary to protect their IP. So could I believe that, as Will suggests, this is kind of them throwing this out there as a feeler and seeing how people react? Sure. I mean, DRM is not new. And if they can kind of slide this DRM check under the radar, would I believe it? I don't understand how you could fix something and then do a small thing to accidentally break something, but it results then in a DRM check. Like, how does that happen? It has to seem somewhat intentional.
It seems like there was something related to maybe PS Plus games, again, because those kind of operate on a timely basis, and it has to verify that you still have the game or you have a service. So I don't know. It's hard to say because I haven't experienced this myself. I don't see what others are seeing, and I can only go by online reports. Do I put it past Sony to implement something like this? No. But I also understand that in today's world, you've got so many different things in your priority queue that has to be fixed that I could see them breaking something just by not checking or debugging their fixes. I don't know.
You could be right. I think it's one of those things where the best advice is to be vigilant. Stay ready, because it's given the level of control we've seen from companies to where, you say, if you want to own your game, well, don't buy anything past a certain generation. We know that our level of ownership over games has become nothing. Whether you own it on a disc, a physical copy, your ownership of that game is pretty much nil at this point. So any way they can, make it known that they own that and take away ownership little by little, they've done. So maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe it wasn't. We can't know for sure, but time will tell and actions will dictate which is correct, which is true. Although
I also think it was Will's way of just trying to once again flout physical media superiority over digital.
I guess, but there's pros and cons to both, so I personally don't know how you could say one is superior to the others, but if that's what you want to believe, that's, hey, it's your prerogative.
Alrighty. Well, thank you all for listening to the show. Realize that sometimes it's tough with just running it with Alex and I, but I think we gave you some good conversation tonight. Hopefully, comment on our socials as necessary, but we'll start closing out today's show. Alex, why don't you go ahead?
Give a shout out to the fans, the fuel to the fire that is Trophy Horrors, our awesome community. Thank you all for your continued support. It's what drives Trophy Horrors forward. It makes our Sunday nights better and our weeks better to know that we put out a hopefully a thought-provoking, entertaining podcast that you all enjoy, and you all give back to us with your support. So thank you all very much. Shout to my co-host Matt, as well as Tricky and Yield. Shout out to Sid for the Sophie's Trophies, as well as thank you to Will for his artwork. Last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend Ashley. I love you, hon. And Matt, I believe you are up center stage.
All right. Well, I'm not going to repeat all the shout outs you got, so I'll just hit up thank you to all of them as well. Thank you and shout out to the Channel 3 community. Make sure to check out channel3.gg for gamified social media. Make sure to check out all of our other friends and families' podcasts. Check out Will's PlayStation Ain't Dead podcast, which, is turning into more just Ain't Dead Network. And shout out to my wife, V. Thank you for all that you do. That said, this has been episode 712 of the Trophy Whores. Time for us to eject. Checking out.
Later.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.